Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Chapter 1. Runaway Bride. The early summer sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the old church, illuminating the pristine white wedding dress that Vera Lysander wore. At 28, she wasn't the type of bride who trembled with shy anticipation before her big day. Her long brown hair was neatly tied back beneath a veil, but her sharp eyes glinted with mischief and determination. This wasn't her dream wedding. It was a trap set by her mother, Isadora Lysander, to save the family's debt-ridden corporation. The groom, Cassian Holt, a wealthy businessman with a bland smile and a handshake as cold as cash, was the partner Isadora had chosen to trade for the Lysander family's survival. But Vera wasn't a pawn willing to play along. She had a plan. For the past month, Vera had been confined to the sprawling family villa, guarded 24/7 by a security team hired by her mother. Men in black suits, earpieces in place, hovered around her like ghosts. She'd once tried climbing out her bedroom window, caught within 5 minutes. She'd faked an illness to slip out the back gate, only for Isadora to install more cameras. Each failure was a lesson, and Vera realized one thing: the wedding day would be her only shot. With everyone distracted by guests and the guards' attention scattered, she, in her dazzling wedding gown, would become the perfect decoy to fool them all. In the bride's preparation room, the sound of violins drifted in from the ceremony hall, soft yet stifling, like a noose tightening around Vera's neck. Isadora entered, dressed in a deep green silk gown, her face cold, but unable to hide a smug satisfaction. "You look decent," she said, her tone flat, as if reading a financial report. "Behave yourself. Cassian is a generous man, and we need him." Vera gave a faint smile, her hands clasped tightly behind her back to hide a slight tremble of nerves. "I know, Mother," she replied, her voice dripping with mock sweetness that even she found amusing. Isadora nodded, satisfied, then left to greet the VIP guests. The moment the door closed, Vera locked it with a lightning-fast motion. She bent down, lifting the voluminous gown to reveal a small fabric pouch strapped to her thigh. Inside were her weapons: an old pair of jeans, a black t-shirt, and worn-out sneakers that remained her trusty companions. She smirked, muttering to herself, "You think you've won, Mother?" Not yet. With the dexterity of someone who'd once escaped a strict summer camp as a kid, Vera slipped off her white high heels, keeping one in hand as a makeshift weapon, then quickly pulled on the jeans and t-shirt beneath the wedding dress. She laced up her sneakers, checking herself in the mirror one last time. The gown still concealed everything, a perfect disguise for her plan. A loud knock rattled the door. "Miss Vera, it's time!" a deep voice from the security team called out. Vera took a deep breath, unlocked the door, and stepped out with the calm demeanor of an obedient bride. 2 guards flanked her, escorting her down the long hallway to the ceremony hall. The organ music swelled, and guests turned to watch, whispering about the beauty of the Lysander bride. Vera maintained a flawless smile, but in her mind each step was a countdown to freedom. As she walked down the aisle, Cassian Holt's gaze met hers from afar. Dressed in an expensive gray suit, he smiled smugly, as if he already owned her. Vera glanced at Isadora, who stood rigid, arms crossed, her icy stare commanding. "Don't do anything stupid." But Vera was ready. A few meters from the altar, she pretended to stumble, clutching her dress as if losing balance. "Oh!" she exclaimed, loud enough to draw attention. The guards moved toward her instantly, but that was her moment. With a decisive yank, Vera grabbed the outer layer of her gown and tore it off. The sound of ripping fabric echoed through the stunned silence, leaving guests gaping. Underneath, she revealed her casual clothes: jeans, t-shirt, sneakers, a vivid declaration of rebellion. Before anyone could react, Vera bolted through the crowd, shoving aside a guard trying to block her, and shouted, "I'm not selling my life to anyone!" Her voice rang out, proud and exhilarated, drowning out the faltering organ music. Chaos erupted. Isadora roared from behind, "Stop her!" But Vera had already reached the main doors, her feet pounding the cold stone floor of the church. The outside air hit her, cool and liberating. Vera sprinted down a side path beside the church, heart racing, adrenaline surging like a sweet victory. She didn't look back until her body slammed into something solid. A sleek black SUV parked by the roadside jolted from the impact, and Vera tumbled to the ground, hands scraping the pavement. The clatter of a coffee cup hitting the floor followed, accompanied by a low, cold voice. "Are you a stunt double or something?" Vera looked up, panting. Standing before her was Cale Draven, a tall man in a white shirt now stained with coffee. His dark hair was slightly mussed, and his gray eyes flickered with irritation mixed with curiosity. He scanned her from head to toe, half a wedding dress still dangling around her waist, jeans peeking out, dusty sneakers, hair wild as if she'd just escaped a storm. Vera, despite having run for her life, refused to back down. She stood, brushing off her hands, and shot back defiantly, "No, I'm someone who just beat fate at its own game." Cal frowned, clearly unimpressed. "Beat fate and cost me my coffee?" he said dryly, brushing the stain on his shirt as if it were her greatest sin. Vera smirked, about to retort, when distant shouts from the guards snapped her back to reality. "Miss Vera, stop!" Without hesitation, she turned and dashed into a nearby alley, leaving Cale standing there with his SUV and a baffled expression. In Vera's mind, Cale was just an arrogant stranger who'd stumbled into her escape route. To Cale, the bizarre girl who'd ruined his morning was nothing more than a lunatic full of trouble. But neither of them knew that this collision was only the beginning of an inescapable chain of fate. Chapter 2. Collision Course, Fated Reunion. 3 days after escaping her wedding, Vera Lysander stood behind the counter of a small bakery called Honeycrumb on the outskirts of the city. The shop was tucked away on a quiet street, with the scent of freshly baked goods wafting from the oven and the jingle of a bell ringing each time a customer pushed the door open. Vera wore a light blue apron, her hair tied up high, her hands deftly wiping down the counter, a stark contrast to the rebellious bride from days before. She'd taken this job not just for money, but to start over, severing all ties with Isadora Lysander and the suffocating world of the Lysander family. The meager savings in her pocket were enough to rent a rundown room, but Vera didn't care. Freedom was worth more than anything. Today was her first shift, and Vera was determined to do well. She wasn't clumsy by nature, but the tension from her days on the run still left her slightly distracted. The shop's owner, a middle-aged woman named Marla, had given her clear instructions. "The customers here are easygoing. Just smile a lot and you'll be fine." Vera nodded, though inwardly she thought, "Smile at who when the whole world once tried to chain me to some rich old man?" She just finished wiping the counter when the bell chimed. Her first customer of the shift walked in. Cale Draven pushed the door open, his demeanor cool in a light gray dress shirt and black slacks. He'd just finished a short meeting nearby and stopped by the bakery for a rare sweet treat, a small habit to unwind. His gray eyes scanned the cozy space, landing on the employee behind the counter. Vera looked up, flashing a professional smile. "Hi, what can I get for you?" But as their eyes met, both froze. Cale's brow furrowed, the memory of the girl who'd crashed into his car days ago flooding back. Though she no longer wore a torn wedding dress or dusty sneakers, he recognized that defiant glint in her eyes. Vera, meanwhile, felt her heart skip a beat. The man with the coffee-stained shirt and sarcastic tone, unmistakable. But she quickly regained her composure, forcing her smile to stay in place. What's he doing here, she wondered, her grip tightening on the rag beneath the counter. "A croissant and a black coffee," Cale said evenly, though his gaze didn't waver from her. Vera nodded, turning to grab a pastry from the glass display, trying to act normal. She placed the croissant on a plate, but her hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from irritation as she recalled his stunt double jab from before. As she turned back, the plate slipped from her grasp, and the croissant landed squarely on Cale's chest, leaving a faint smear of butter across his shirt. The room fell silent for 3 seconds. Vera opened her mouth, about to apologize on reflex, but Cale spoke first. "You," he said, his voice dropping low, "are you planning to ruin the world one step at a time?" He brushed at his shirt, but the butter only spread further. Vera instantly abandoned any thought of apologizing. She crossed her arms, smirking. And you're great at ticking people off. Who told you to stand so close to the counter? Kyle stared at her, incredulous. Stand close to the counter? This is a bakery. Where else am I supposed to stand? On the ceiling? He pointed upward, his sarcasm unmistakable. Vera took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but her feisty side kicked in. If you'd been quicker, you could have caught the croissant. Don't blame me, she shot back, her tone sharp, hands on her hips as if ready for a fight. The few customers seated in the corner began to turn and look. Marla poked her head out from the kitchen, asking worriedly, "What's going on, Vera?" But Vera ignored her. She and Kyle were locked in a stare-down, neither willing to back off. "You're that crazy bride from the other day, aren't you?" Kyle said, his voice lowering as if he'd just uncovered a secret. "I knew it. Only someone like you would spill coffee on someone and then run off." Vera's face flushed, not from embarrassment, but from anger. "And you're the arrogant jerk who got in my way. Don't think I forgot that smug tone of yours," she fired back, pointing straight at him. Kale raised an eyebrow, and for the first time that day, the corner of his mouth twitched upward. Not quite a smile, but as if he found her stubbornness oddly entertaining. "Got in your way? I was standing still, and you crashed into me. Now you've ruined my shirt. Impressive talent." "Your shirt's fine. What about my life that almost got ruined?" Vera snapped, forgetting she was at work. Marla rushed out, trying to smooth things over. "Come on now. I'll apologize for her. Let me get you another croissant. On the house." But Kale wasn't interested. He pulled out his phone, opened a review app, and typed a quick line. "Staff is a living disaster. 1 star." He held the screen up for Vera to see, saying, "Consider it a reunion gift." Vera glared, her hands clenching so hard her knuckles turned white. "You wouldn't dare," she growled, stepping out from behind the counter as if to snatch the phone. Kel took a step back, unfazed. "Already done. Good luck with your new job." He turned, pushed the door open, and walked out, leaving Vera standing there, panting with rage. Marla pulled her back, worried. "Vera, calm down. He's just a customer." But Vera wasn't listening. She muttered under her breath, "That guy, I swear I'll teach him a lesson." Outside, Cal brushed at his shirt again, eyeing the butter stain with annoyance. But in his mind, the image of the stubborn girl who'd just gone toe-to-toe with him made him smirk. A rare smile he didn't even notice. She wasn't just clumsy, she was defiant in a strangely captivating way. Back in the bakery, Vera watched his retreating figure through the glass door, vowing to herself, "Next time we meet, I'll make you eat that sarcasm." She had no idea that their next encounter would come sooner than she expected. Chapter 3. Crashing Worlds. Unavoidable Encounters. After the bakery spat, Vera Lysander swore to herself that she'd never let Cale Draven, the arrogant man with the 1-star review, cross her path again. But life, like a taunting game, never bent to her will. Within a week, Vera and Cale kept running into each other in the oddest situations, each accident sparking irritation while subtly shifting how they saw one another. It all started 4 days after the bakery incident. Vera took a delivery order from Honeycrumb to a sleek modern office building downtown. The gleaming glass panels and polished luxury of the place made her feel out of place in her thin jacket and baseball cap, worn to avoid recognition by anyone from the Lysander family. Carrying a carefully packed box of pastries, she stepped into the elevator, muttering the address Marla had given her. Room 1403, delivered to Mr. Draven. She didn't think much of it, just wanted to drop it off and leave. The elevator stopped at the 14th floor, and Vera entered a spacious office with dark wooden desks and the faint scent of coffee in the air. A young secretary pointed down the hall. "Mr. Draven's in the last room. Don't bother him long. He's busy." Vera nodded and approached a wooden door with a small plaque reading K. Draven. Without waiting for a response, a bad habit from childhood, she pushed it open. Inside, Cal sat behind a desk, pen in hand, eyes fixed on a thick stack of documents. He looked up, about to speak, but froze when he saw Vera. "You?" he asked, his voice icy. Vera froze too, nearly dropping the box. "You?" she replied, her voice pitching high with shock. Before either could say more, Vera stepped forward to set the box on his desk, but her hand knocked over a glass of water nearby. It spilled, soaking the papers in front of Cale. "What the hell are you doing?" Cale shot up, snatching the documents, though ink had already bled into one corner. Vera stood stunned, then grabbed tissues from the desk and wiped frantically, making it worse. "I didn't mean to," she said, her voice slightly panicked, but still defiant. Cal yanked the tissues from her, growling, "You don't mean to, yet every time we meet, it's a disaster?" "Coffee, pastries, now my papers. Are you trying to ruin my entire life?" Vera smirked, refusing to back down. "Don't blame me. Who leaves a glass of water lying around like that?" The secretary rushed in at the noise, alarmed. "Mr. Draven, are you okay?" Kyle waved her off, then turned to Vera. "What kind of VIP customer are you, delivering all the way here?" Vera crossed her arms, retorting, "I'm working, not like some people who just sit around judging others." Cal stared at her, his expression a mix of annoyance and confusion, then pointed to the door. "Take your pastries somewhere else. I don't want them anymore." Vera grabbed the box, stormed out, muttering, "This guy's a nightmare." But as she stepped into the elevator, a strange feeling hit her, like she'd just lost a round she didn't understand. Less than 3 days later, Vera ran into Cale again, this time at a charity auction in a lavish hotel. Marla had convinced her to tag along. "Think of it as an experience. Maybe you'll snag some big clients." Vera reluctantly agreed, wearing a simple black dress borrowed from Marla, feeling out of place among the crowd in tuxedos and evening gowns. The auction was raising funds for underprivileged kids, and Vera sat in a corner, not planning to bid. But when an abstract painting came up and the host called, "Starting at $500, Vera, for some reason, raised her hand. She'd only meant to ask if it was sold separately. The host immediately cheered, $500 from the lady in the corner. Anyone higher?" Vera panicked, about to clarify, when a deep voice rang out from the VIP seats. $1,000. She turned and her heart stopped as she saw Cale Draven, holding up his paddle, staring right at her, like it was a challenge. $1,500, Vera shouted without thinking, driven by her refusal to lose. Kyle raised an eyebrow. 2,000. The crowd buzzed and Vera, face flushing, yelled, 3,000. She had no money, but her pride wouldn't let her stop. Kyle looked at her, the corner of his mouth twitching, then raised his paddle. 10,000. The host banged the gavel. $10,000 to the gentleman in the VIP row. Vera exhaled in relief, but froze when Kyle stood, walked over and whispered, "You don't have the money, do you? I just saved you." Vera glared. "Who needs your saving?" "I was just asking." Kyle smirked. "Asking your way into bankruptcy?" Impressive. He walked off, leaving Vera sitting there, fuming and embarrassed. Later, she learned Kyle was the event's secret sponsor and had dropped $10,000 to bail her out, an act she didn't know whether to hate or appreciate. But in that moment, she just wanted to dig a hole and disappear. Before she could recover from the auction, the next day brought heavy rain. Vera dashed into a convenience store for shelter, her jacket soaked, hair plastered to her face. As she stepped inside, she spotted Cale at the checkout, holding a water bottle. "You again," she blurted, her voice thick with frustration. Cale turned, frowning. "Are you following me?" Vera snapped back. "Who'd want to?" "It's raining. I'm just hiding." They stood a few feet apart, silent, until Vera accidentally bumped a nearby shelf. A stack of instant noodle boxes crashed to the floor, and Cal looked at her. "Did you do that?" Vera shot back. "You're closer. Maybe you did." They argued fiercely over who knocked the shelf, their voices drowning out the rain outside. A store clerk rushed over, asking them to pick up the mess, and they reluctantly bent down. As they did, the rain intensified, the store lost power, and the automatic doors locked. They were trapped. Vera sat in a corner, hugging her knees, muttering about her rotten day, while Cale leaned against the wall, silent. After a while, he pulled an umbrella from his bag, opened it, and handed it to her. "Take it. Don't get any wetter." Vera was surprised but took it, mumbling, "I don't need your pity." When the rain stopped, they stepped outside, and Kale quietly held the umbrella over her until she reached the bus stop. He said nothing, just turned away as she boarded. Vera watched him through the window, thinking for the first time, he's not entirely awful. Meanwhile, Kyle, back in his car, told himself, she's stubborn as hell, but interesting. These reluctant encounters, though chaotic, had planted the first seeds of something neither yet recognized. Spilling water, bidding blunder, trapped in the rain. Which moment's the funniest to you? Subscribe to the channel to keep watching and share your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 4. Forced Proximity Bound Together. After a string of chaotic, unavoidable encounters, Vera Lysander decided she needed a more stable job to rebuild her life. Honeycomb was warm and welcoming, but the meager pay wasn't enough to lift her out of her cramped rental room or ease her constant worry that Isadora Lysander might track her down at any moment. One afternoon, while scrolling through job listings on her phone, Vera got a call from Marla. "There's a temporary gig, assistant for a big art event, 2 weeks," Marla said, her voice brimming with excitement. "Good pay, and I think you can handle it. I've already recommended you." Vera hesitated, but the money, enough to move to a new place, made her nod. "All right, I'll take it." On her first day at the venue, a sprawling gallery with pristine white walls and soft lighting, Vera felt a bit overwhelmed. Dressed in a white blouse and jeans, she tried to look professional, despite the unease gnawing at her. The event manager, a middle-aged woman named Elise, greeted her with a friendly smile. "You'll be working directly with the main sponsor," Elise said, leading Vera down a long hallway. "He's a bit particular, but very talented. Just follow his instructions, and you'll be fine." Vera nodded, thinking she'd dealt with difficult people before, until the meeting room door swung open, revealing Kale Draven seated at the head of the table, flipping through a stack of documents. "You?" Kale looked up, his voice dropping low, gray eyes flashing with familiar irritation. Vera froze, clutching her small bag tightly. "You," she replied, her voice spiking with shock. Elise glanced between them, surprised. "You two know each other?" Vera opened her mouth to deny it, but Kale cut in first, his tone icy. "Barely. But I'm not sure she's suited for this job." Vera fired back instantly. "I can do it. Don't judge me before I've even started." Elise gave an awkward laugh, trying to smooth things over. "Come on, we've only got 2 weeks to prepare. I'm sure you'll work well together." And so Vera and Kale were thrust into collaborating for 2 weeks to organize Canvas of Hope, an art exhibition showcasing young artists' works to raise charity funds. From day one, they clashed relentlessly. Vera wanted simplicity, minimal setup, focus on the art, no extravagance. "People are here for the paintings, not a stage show," she said at the first meeting, tapping the table. Kyle, on the other hand, demanded perfection. Precise lighting, elegant ambiance, every detail controlled. This isn't your bakery," he retorted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "If it's half-baked, no one's donating." Vera glared. "You think I don't get the value of this event? Not everyone loves your flashy style." The days that followed were an endless stream of arguments. Vera picked artists based on the emotion in their work. Kale dismissed them for lacking name recognition. Kale insisted on hiring an expensive lighting crew. Vera objected because the budget isn't infinite. They bickered over everything, curtain colors, chair arrangements. Once, when Vera accidentally spilled coffee on Kale's plans, he stared at her with murder in his eyes. "Is destruction just innate for you?" Vera smirked. "And driving people insane? Is that innate for you?" Elise and the other staff could only watch from the sidelines, shaking their heads in dismay. But amid the tense standoffs, a small incident shifted the dynamic. On the 5th day, a young artist named Milo, a skinny, shy boy with messy hair, arrived at the gallery to deliver his painting. Trembling, he told Vera that his main piece had been ruined by rainwater and he couldn't afford to redo it. I don't know what to do," he mumbled, eyes red. Vera looked at him, recalling her own helplessness when trapped in the Lysander house. She patted his shoulder. "Don't worry, I'll help you." Vera brought it up at the next meeting, suggesting they use contingency funds to help Milo recreate his work. Kale, reviewing papers, cut in. "No, that fund's for emergencies, not personal charity." Vera shot to her feet, slamming the table. This isn't charity, it's an investment. He's talented, can't you see that? Cal met her gaze, ready to argue, but her unwavering resolve made him pause. After a long silence, he sighed. Fine, but you're responsible if he messes up. Vera nodded, stunned he'd agreed. Over the next 3 days, they both pitched in for Milo. Vera sourced cheap materials and taught him how to protect his work, while Cale quietly called a friend to reprint the frame for free. When Milo finished his new piece, a vibrant painting of hope, he hugged Vera, tears streaming. Thank you. I never thought I'd get to be in an exhibition. Vera smiled, patting his back. Just believe in yourself. Cal stood a few steps away, watching, the corner of his mouth twitching upward. For the first time, he saw Vera as more than stubborn. She was warm. The night before the exhibition, a heavy rain fell. Vera stood alone in a corner of the gallery, staring out the glass window, her eyes tinged with sadness. She remembered her wedding escape, the rain tapping the church roof, the mix of freedom and fear as she ran. She didn't hear Kyle's footsteps until a white handkerchief appeared in front of her. Startled, she turned to see Kyle standing there, holding it out, his face expressionless. Wipe your hand, he said, voice low. The rain didn't get you, but you look like you're about to cry. Vera blinked, surprised, but took the handkerchief, muttering, I'm not crying, just remembering some things. Kyle didn't press, standing beside her, watching the rain. Silence settled, but for the first time it wasn't stifling. It felt oddly comforting, like an unspoken understanding. Vera wiped her hands, glancing at Kyle. He's not entirely a jerk. Kyle inwardly thought, she's not just trouble. The 2 weeks ended with a successful exhibition. They still argued, still kept their distance. But moments like helping Milo and the handkerchief had planted seeds of change. Vera began to see Kyle as more than an arrogant perfectionist. He cared in his own way. Kyle, though he wouldn't admit it, realized Vera wasn't just stubborn, she had a heart worth respecting. They weren't friends yet, but they were no longer enemies. Chapter 5. The Unmasking, Truth Revealed. After 2 weeks of working together on the art event, Vera Lysander thought she'd begun to understand Cale Draven, a cold, perfectionist man who occasionally threw her off with unexpected gestures, like the handkerchief in the rain or his quiet help for Milo. Though their arguments never ceased, Vera no longer saw Cale as the detestable enemy she once did. But she never imagined that, just as the Canvas of Hope exhibition wrapped up, a secret about him would upend everything she thought she knew. It all started the evening after the exhibition. The event was a resounding success. Paintings sold for high prices, the charity fund raked in tens of thousands of dollars, and both Vera and Cale earned praise from Elise. Exhausted from 2 grueling weeks, Vera still felt a quiet satisfaction. She stood in a corner of the gallery, watching the artwork being packed away, a cold glass of water in hand. Kyle, as usual, stood a few meters off, chatting with a group of VIPs. Dressed in a black suit, he exuded calm, but something about how he declined a handshake from an older man caught Vera's eye. He's so arrogant, she thought, yet couldn't shake a flicker of curiosity. That night, while tidying up the last of the documents, Vera accidentally picked up a business card that had slipped from Cale's stack of papers. It was black with silver trim, simply stating, Cale Draven, Chairman, Draven Holdings. Vera frowned, not thinking much of it, until she flipped it over and saw a small line. Real Estate Investment Management, 12 national branches. She froze, her hand trembling slightly. Draven Holdings? The name wasn't unfamiliar. It had come up in her mother's meetings, Isadora Lysander mentioning it as a powerful conglomerate the Lysanders always wanted to partner with, but could never reach. Vera pieced it together. Chairman, Cale was a tycoon. She couldn't believe it. Kyle, the man she'd spilled coffee on, argued with over instant noodles in a convenience store, was a real estate mogul. Vera racked her brain. He always dressed simply, no flashy watches or boasting, even driving his own SUV instead of having a chauffeur. But this card couldn't be fake. She slipped it into her pocket, resolved to dig deeper, though a familiar unease crept in, the suspicion she'd learned from Isadora about the elite. The next day, Vera went to the public library borrowing a computer to search. A few clicks revealed a slew of old articles about Draven Holdings, a real estate empire owning dozens of skyscrapers, resorts, and malls nationwide. But info on Cale was scarce. One piece from 3 years ago noted, Cale Draven, sole heir of the Draven family, refused to take over the company after his father's death, opting for a low-profile life. Draven Holdings is now run by its board, though he retains the largest share. Vera reread it, feeling the ground shift beneath her. Living low profile? Rejecting his inheritance? She wasn't sure what to believe, but it started to click. Cale's discretion, his presence in unexpected places, the cool confidence she'd mistaken for arrogance. An internal conflict erupted in Vera. She despised the wealthy, people like Isadora, like Cassian Holt, who used money and power to control others. Her life had been caged by her mother's schemes, and she'd sworn never to tangle with that world again. Yet Cale was different. He didn't flaunt, didn't force her, even rejected the life he could have dominated. Sitting in the library, hands gripping the table's edge, Vera wondered, who is he really? A pretender hiding his true self, or someone genuinely different? She needed answers, and there was only one way to get them. That afternoon, Vera marched to Cale's office, the same place she'd once delivered pastries. Unannounced, she pushed the door open, clutching the business card like a final trump card. Cale stood by the window, gazing at the city, turning at her footsteps. "What are you up to now?" he asked, his tone even but his eyes wary. Vera didn't beat around the bush. She held up the card, her voice shaking with anger and confusion. "Explain this. Who are you? A hidden tycoon, right? Draven Holdings. That name's not new to me." Cale glanced at the card, then at her, showing no surprise. He stepped forward, took it from her hand, and slipped it into his pocket. "You went through my things?" he asked, his voice cool but not harsh. Vera crossed her arms. "It fell out. I picked it up." "Don't dodge the question. You're some rich guy playing a role, aren't you? Pretending to be normal for what? To trick someone?" Her words cut like knives, but inside she was a mess. She didn't want to believe Cale was like Isadora, yet her past wouldn't let her trust easily. Cale stayed silent for a moment, then sat down, meeting her gaze head-on. "I'm not playing a role," he said, his voice low and firm. "I was born into that family, but I didn't choose it. My father wanted me to take over. I refused. I live quietly because I don't want to be defined by money or power. Draven Holdings is mine, but I don't run it. I let others handle it." He paused, a flicker of sadness in his eyes. "I don't need wealth to define me, Vera." Vera stood there, fists clenched, unsure how to respond. His words rang true, but she couldn't accept them outright. "Nice speech," she shot back, her tone biting. "But I know how the rich work. My mother, Isadora Lysander, said pretty things too before selling me off to a guy like Cassian Holt. How are you different?" Kyle's brow furrowed, the first time she'd seen him rattled. "Lysander?" he repeated, his voice dropping. "You're Isadora's daughter?" Vera nodded, her eyes red but tearless. "Yes, and I hate everything tied to her world. Money, power, people like you." Cale stood, stepping closer, his voice firm. "I'm not Isadora. I don't sell people. Don't force them. If I wanted that life, I'd be in a penthouse, not driving myself or working like this." He pointed out the window to his black SUV below. "You think I'm fake? Fine. But don't lump me into the world you hate without knowing me." The confrontation ended in silence. Vera turned and left the office, her mind a storm of conflict. She wanted to believe Cale, but the fear of being hurt, rooted in her past with Isadora, kept her guarded. Cale, alone in the room, watched her go, wondering why her words unsettled him so much. The truth was out, but the gap between them didn't close. It widened, waiting for a chance to be bridged. Kyle's a tycoon, but will Vera trust him? Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you believe him or doubt him? Chapter 6. The Shift, a Change of Heart. After the tense confrontation in Cale Draven's office, Vera Lysander no longer crossed paths with him as often. The Canvas of Hope exhibition had ended, and she returned to her job at Honeycrumb, trying to focus on her new life. But Cale's words, "I don't need money to define me," kept echoing in her mind, refusing to let her push him out of her thoughts. Vera was conflicted. She'd built a solid wall to shield herself from the elite world she despised, but Kyle, with his inexplicable sincerity, was making that wall tremble. She didn't want to admit it, but every time she recalled the handkerchief in the rain or his quiet help for Milo, her heart beat a little faster. The chance for them to face each other again came on a special evening, the gala celebrating the exhibition's success. Elise, the event manager, invited Vera as a key contributor. "You have to come," Elise said over the phone. "Everyone wants to thank you." Vera hesitated, knowing Kyle, the main sponsor, would surely be there. But she couldn't refuse, driven partly by curiosity and partly by an odd pull she couldn't name. She wore the simple black dress from the auction, staring at herself in the mirror, telling herself, "I'm just going to get it over with. Nothing to do with him." The gala was held in a luxurious hotel, its grand hall aglow with crystal chandeliers and warm light, decorated with paintings from the exhibition. Vera stepped in, feeling out of place among the crowd in tuxedos and evening gowns. She lingered in a corner, clutching a glass of orange juice, watching the room. Then she saw Cale. He stood near the stage, dressed in a black suit, calm yet striking amid the throng. He was talking to a group, but his eyes suddenly met hers. Vera turned away, pretending not to notice, though her pulse raced. The gala went smoothly. Elise gave a speech, thanking the artists and sponsors, including Kyle. When he took the stage, his deep voice rang out briefly. "This wasn't just my effort. Thanks to those who worked hard, even if a bit clumsily at times." The crowd chuckled, and Vera knew he meant her. She glared from afar, but the corner of her mouth twitched upward. For the first time, his sarcasm didn't annoy her. As the night wound down, fireworks lit up the sky from the hotel's rooftop. Guests poured outside to watch, and Vera was swept along. She stood at the railing, the night breeze lifting her hair as fireworks burst in dazzling reds, yellows, and blues, their reflections dancing in her eyes. She was so captivated, she didn't notice Cale beside her until he spoke. "Pretty, isn't it?" His low voice startled her, and she turned to find him closer than she'd expected, hands in his pockets, eyes on the sky, a faint curve to his lips. "Yeah, it is," Vera replied, trying to sound casual, though his nearness made her tense. They stood in silence for a moment, the fireworks drowning out all else. Then Cale turned to her, his gaze deep. "Do you still hate me?" Vera blinked, caught off guard by his bluntness. She opened her mouth for a sarcastic retort, but his eyes, no longer cold but strangely warm, silenced her. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice softening. "I hate what you represent, but you're not like them?" Kyle said nothing, just looked at her. Another firework exploded, its light bathing their faces. Then, as if spurred by something unspoken, he stepped closer, his hand gently grasping her wrist. Vera froze, about to pull away, but his gaze held her still. "I'm not forcing you to trust me," he said, his voice low but steady. "But I want you to know who I am, not the title you read." Before she could react, Cale drew her in, and his lips met hers. The kiss was sudden, firm, yet not rough. Vera stood stunned for a heartbeat, her mind blank, but then her body moved before her reason could catch up. She closed her eyes and kissed him back. The fireworks blended with the chaotic thumping of their hearts, and in that moment, every wall between them seemed to crumble. When Cale pulled away, he was breathless, his eyes still locked on hers. Vera flushed, stepping back, her hand brushing her lips as if she couldn't believe what had happened. What was that?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I don't know," Cale replied, and for the first time she saw him flustered. "I just couldn't stop myself." Vera turned away, hiding the storm of emotions inside her. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. That kiss was unlike anything she'd known. Not the coercion of Isadora, not the calculation of Cassian. It was real, and that scared her. In the days that followed, Vera couldn't stop thinking about Cale. She realized he wasn't like her mother or the elites she'd met. He didn't use money to manipulate, didn't force her into anything. Even after the kiss, he'd let her walk away freely. She recalled how he'd rejected his inheritance, lived quietly, and the small moments like the handkerchief or helping Milo. He's not like them, she told herself, but fear clung to her. Her past with Isadora had taught her that trust led to pain, and she didn't want to repeat that mistake. Kale, meanwhile, was restless too. The rooftop kiss hadn't been planned, but it had shattered the cold shell he always wore. He thought of Vera, her stubbornness, her strength, the fleeting sadness in her eyes when she watched the rain. He realized he wanted to protect her, not just from Isadora or her past, but from the doubts she trapped herself in. But he didn't know how, and that unsettled him, a rare feeling for someone so in control. They met again a few days later, by chance, at a small coffee shop. Vera sat in a corner, reading, while Kale came in for a to-go order. When he saw her, he paused, then approached. "I didn't mean to kiss you," he said, his voice low but sincere. "But I don't regret it." Vera looked up, her eyes wavering. "I don't know what to think of you," she replied softly. "I'm scared. Scared of getting hurt again." Cal sat across from her, not touching her, just saying, "I won't promise you the world, but I won't hurt you. Trust me or not, it's up to you." Their talk ended without promises, but both felt the shift. Vera began to believe Kale was genuine, and Kale resolved to prove it. Something fragile yet fierce bloomed between them, caught between fear and hope. Chapter 7. The Fallout, Misunderstandings and Fractures. After the kiss on the rooftop and their coffee shop conversation, the relationship between Vera Lysander and Kale Draven settled into an odd, undefined space, unspoken yet brimming with emotion. They weren't officially anything to each other, but brief encounters afterward, a nod when they bumped into each other at the bakery, a text from Kale checking in, brought Vera a warmth she'd never known. She began to believe Kale wasn't like Isadora Lysander or Cassian Holt, that he was genuinely sincere. But that fragile trust wasn't strong enough to withstand the shadows of her past, and a massive misunderstanding shattered everything. It started on a Tuesday morning while Vera was wiping down the counter at Honeycrumb. Marla, the shop owner, bustled in holding a tabloid, her voice buzzing with excitement. "Vera, look at this! Hot news about that sponsor guy you worked with at the exhibition." Vera frowned, not particularly interested, but when Marla slapped the paper onto the counter, the headline hit her like a punch. Kale Draven partners with Lysanders through marriage. Tycoon alliance in the shadows. Below it was a photo of Kale shaking hands with an older man, paired with text. Sources say Draven Holdings is negotiating with the Lysander conglomerate to solidify its position with an arranged marriage as the bridge. Vera stood frozen, her trembling hand dropping the rag to the floor. She reread every word, feeling the blood drain from her body. Marriage? The Lysanders? Isadora's name wasn't mentioned outright, but Vera knew her mother ran that empire. She flashed back to Isadora, forcing her to marry Cassian to save the company. And now the thought that Kale, the man she'd started to trust, might be secretly aligning with her mother to control her left her breathless. He tricked me, she thought, tears welling up but held back by a surge of anger. Without a second thought, Vera tore off her apron and bolted out of the bakery, leaving Marla calling after her in confusion. She took a cab to Kale's office, the same place she'd once confronted him about his true identity. Pushing the door open, she found him seated behind his desk, flipping through documents. Kale looked up, a smile starting to form when he saw her. But the sight of her red-rimmed eyes and furious expression stopped him cold. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice low but laced with concern. Vera flung the tabloid onto his desk, her shaking hand pointing at the headline. "Explain this," she yelled, her voice breaking. "You're working with Isadora, aren't you? You plan to use me as a pawn, just like my mother did. I was so stupid to trust you." Kyle glanced at the paper, then at her, his eyes darkening. He stood, his tone firm. "What are you talking about?" "I'm not working with anyone. This is nonsense." "Nonsense?" Vera laughed bitterly, tears finally spilling over. "You think I'm blind? Draven Holdings, the Lysanders, marriage. It's all right here. You pretended to be sincere, pretended to be different. But you're just another scheming rich bastard. She stepped closer, jabbing a finger into his chest. You kissed me, made me trust you. For what? To trick me into going back to the cage Isadora locked me in? Her voice cracked, raw with pain and rage. Kyle clenched his fists, struggling to stay calm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of hurt. Vera, listen to me, he said, his voice low but urgent. I don't know anything about this article. I haven't met Isadora, haven't negotiated anything. Someone might have spread a rumor. But I swear, Vera cut him off, shouting, Don't swear! I don't believe you anymore. I'd rather be alone than get fooled again. She spun around and stormed out of the office, leaving Cale standing there, his hands falling limp. Outside, rain began to fall, but Vera didn't care. She ran through it, tears mixing with the downpour, her chest aching like it was being torn apart. She remembered the rooftop kiss, his words at the coffee shop. Now they felt like a cruel joke. I'm such an idiot, she berated herself, the sting of betrayal crushing her. She'd opened up to Cale, believed he was different, but that article dragged her back to reality. The elite never changed, and she was just prey in their eyes. Back in the office, Cale stood motionless, staring at the tabloid on his desk. He knew these kinds of rumors, fabrications by business rivals, or tabloids chasing clicks. He could call his lawyer, track down the source, but right now all he could think about was Vera's anguished eyes. She didn't trust him. She thought he'd betrayed her, and that cut deeper than any criticism he'd ever faced. He wanted to chase after her, explain, but he stopped himself. She doesn't believe me, he thought, his fist tightening. If she didn't trust him now, explanations were pointless. Kyle sank into his chair, gazing out the window at the thickening rain. He recalled their moments together, her stubbornness, her rare smile when helping Milo, the kiss under the fireworks. He'd thought she was the one person who saw past his tycoon facade to the man beneath. But now she was gone, taking the fragile trust he'd just kindled. He didn't follow her, not out of pride, but because he feared if she couldn't believe him now, she never would. Vera returned to her rental, drenched and exhausted. She curled up on the bed, hugging her knees, trying to erase Cale from her mind. But the more she tried, the more she remembered, and the more it hurt. She didn't know that. Across the city, Cale sat in his car, watching the rain, his heart heavy. A misunderstanding had torn them apart, and both were left wounded, neither willing to cross the divide to mend it. Chapter 8. The Return, a Second Chance. A month had passed since Vera Lysander stormed out of Cale Draven's office in the rain and tears, carrying the pain of a misunderstanding sparked by a tabloid headline. Cale Draven partners with Lysanders through marriage. Her life slipped back into its old rhythm. Working at Honeycrumb, living in a small rental with peeling walls, and trying to bury every memory of Cale. But she couldn't. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the hurt in his gaze as she'd shouted, I'd rather be alone than fooled again. She told herself she'd been right to walk away, that trusting someone like Cale, a hidden tycoon, was her biggest mistake. Yet deep down, a small part of her gnawed at her, wondering if she'd judged him too hastily. Cale, meanwhile, refused to let himself sink into silence or despair. He knew the article was a lie, a dirty trick by a business rival to tarnish Draven Holdings' image. He'd tasked his legal team with investigating, and the results quickly confirmed it. No negotiations with the Lysanders, especially not Isadora Lysander, had ever taken place. But what haunted him wasn't his reputation or company, it was Vera. He couldn't forget her eyes blazing with anger and pain, or how she'd bolted from his office without giving him a chance to explain. He realized he'd been wrong not to chase after her that day, letting pride and helplessness stop him from holding her back. Cale resolved to act, not just to prove the truth, but to reclaim the trust of the woman who'd stirred his heart for the first time in years. He set to work organizing a new art exhibition, Echoes of Freedom, for the young artist from Canvas of Hope. But its heart lay in a central area he named Vera's Escape. Cale didn't just pour money into it. He oversaw every detail himself. Paintings arranged simply yet elegantly, soft lighting instead of ostentation, a warm space reflecting the style Vera had championed in their past collaboration. He wanted her to see that he'd not only listened, but valued her. More than that, Cale publicly rejected a partnership offer from Isadora, one sent to Draven Holdings right after the tabloid story, aiming to exploit the rumor. He ensured the news spread to the press, paired with a clear statement: Draven Holdings doesn't need alliances to survive. I choose freedom, as someone taught me it's worth more than anything. While Cale immersed himself in the exhibition across the city, Isadora Lysander couldn't find peace. The initial tabloid had pleased her. She'd thought it would force Vera back, or at least draw Cale Draven's attention to the Lysanders as a potential partner. But when Cale rejected her offer and publicly disavowed any connection, unease crept in. She sat in her lavish office, a glass of wine in hand, staring out at the city through a vast window. Vera had vanished from her life since the wedding escape, and now Vera's escape in the headlines felt like a stinging reminder of her failure. For the first time in years, Isadora felt regret. She recalled forcing Vera, her cold words like, "This is your duty," and how she'd turned her daughter into a pawn in a power game. She wondered, where did I go wrong? The opening day of Echoes of Freedom arrived, and word of Vera's escape swept through the city. Marla, the bakery owner, brought Vera a fresh newspaper, her voice bubbling. "Vera, look, your name's everywhere. That guy made a whole exhibit section for you." Vera took the paper, her hand trembling as she read the headline. Cale Draven rejects Lysander deal, names exhibit Vera's escape to honor freedom. The article quoted Cale, "I don't need alliances or money to live true to myself. This is how I prove it." Vera sank onto a stool behind the counter, her emotions a tangled mess. She reread it, torn between gandong and confusion. Did he really do this, she wondered, her heart racing as she considered what he'd given up. Not just a deal, but a chance to bolster his empire, all to prove something to her. She hadn't planned to attend the exhibition. She feared facing Cale, worried it might be another ploy. But that evening, standing in her chilly rental, staring at the simple black dress hanging on the wall, Vera felt an irresistible pull. She slipped it on, threw on a light jacket, and stepped out. At the gallery, she paused at the entrance, hesitant. Inside, soft light bathed the paintings, and Vera's escape stood out with a large sign reading, "For the one who taught me freedom is worth more than anything." Vera took a deep breath and walked in, her heart pounding. She moved through the exhibit, feeling the sincerity in every detail. No flashiness, just the understated elegance she'd once advocated. Then she saw Cale. He stood in a corner of the section, dressed in a plain white shirt, holding a glass of water, his gaze distant as if waiting for someone. When he turned and saw her, he froze, nearly dropping the glass. "Vera," he called, his voice low but filled with surprise. Vera approached, her eyes red, unable to hide her emotions. "You did all this? For what?" she asked, her voice trembling. Cale set the glass down and stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "For you," he said without hesitation. "I didn't partner with Isadora, didn't align with the Lysanders. I rejected them, rejected anything that could make you doubt me. I wanted you to see who I am, not the title you fear." Vera stared at him, tears streaming down her face. She remembered the days she'd run, the walls she'd built to protect herself, and the pain of thinking he'd betrayed her. But now, standing before Vera's escape, her doubts melted away. "I used to run," she said, her voice breaking, "from Isadora, from Cassian, from everything. But now I choose you." Cale smiled, a rare, warm smile she'd never seen so fully. He stepped forward, taking her hand. "Then let me be the one to run to you this time." The crowd around them drifted away, leaving the two in the heart of the exhibit. Cale pulled her into an embrace, not rushed like the fireworks kiss, but gentle and steady. Vera rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat sync with hers. At that moment, a figure appeared at the entrance. Isadora Lysander, in a deep green silk dress, stepped in with a complex expression. She'd heard about the exhibition, about Vera's escape, and couldn't stop herself from coming. Seeing Vera in Cale's arms, she halted, her hand tightening on her purse. Vera turned, spotting her mother, her eyes a mix of surprise and wariness. Isadora approached, her voice soft but shaky. Vera, I didn't expect you here. Vera opened her mouth to respond coldly, but Isadora raised a hand to stop her. I was wrong, Isadora said, her eyes red. I forced you, thought money was everything. But when you left, when I saw this, she gestured toward Vera's escape. I realized I lost you long ago. I'm sorry. Vera stood still, unsure what to say. An apology from Isadora was something she'd never imagined, and it threw her off balance. Kyle squeezed her hand tighter, a silent encouragement. Finally, Vera gave a small nod. You don't need to apologize, but I'll live my life, not yours. Isadora offered a sad smile, turned, and walked away, leaving Vera with the freedom she no longer controlled. Weeks later, Vera and Kale stood beside the sleek black SUV, the spot where they'd first collided in chaos. Vera wore a simple white dress, not a forced wedding gown, but her own choice. Kyle looked at her, his gaze tender. This time, do you want to run? Vera smiled, taking his hand. No, I choose to stay. They climbed into the car, embarking on a new journey together. A willing marriage, free of schemes or pressure, built solely on the love and understanding they shared. Thank you for following this heartfelt story. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth.